So what is evil? Looking at religious doctrines, evil is a vague description and used throughout the world for thousands of years. It has never really been defined, right? I mean, some philosophers attempt to I'm gonna just outline some traits that I've noticed, some similarities, and to me what is fairly precedent as evil. And it's not quite what people interpret, I don't think. In the laws of free will and free will philosophy, evil is basically hypocrisy. And I'll explain why. So, my family's fairly religious, and they love, well, just growing up in Catholic society, you get the very passionate people who like to instill fear even in the minds of children. And they've been talking to me about one mythos of Jezebel and King Ahab, right? Well, Jezebel purged her kingdom of Yahwehism and instituted another belief system. And so I can't find any writings that aren't from the Bible to describe how she, instigated this purge. And it's supposed to be pretty gruesome. So what happened is then they slaughtered the entire bloodline and threw her out a window, trampled her body to death, dismembered her, and fed her to dogs. What is evil? Now, the recount is that this is false prophet, right? This is a false prophecy, all driven by the prophet that said she would be fed to dogs, essentially. So it's self-fulfilling. That's what it is. It's people in that regard willing to make a threat and carry the threat out. That is prophecy. So, in terms of philosophy and science, what is prophecy? What is understanding? How, in a genetic algorithm, how we can develop and evolve. This is where evil starts to become more outlined. In ancient Egypt, and I can't fully remember the pharaoh, but he and his family, his wife and children, basically uprooted polytheism and instigated monotheism. Well, they were seen as heretics. And so essentially the same thing happened. Thousands of years prior to what happened to Ahab, who was most likely, let's be honest, murdered in battle, right? Surrounded by somebody who was no different than freeing the Israels when they slaughtered all the firstborns. Well, that's hearsay. We don't have proof of that, right? I mean, this is what we teach people. It's disgusting, right? It's pretty mental. What is evil? Hypocrisy, obviously. Evil is changing shape. It's turning into justice. It's turning into this rationality. And the thing is, we are prolonging that, instance to instance to instance. Just like in ancient Egypt, they were called heretics. They were instituting monotheism, and called heretics, basically all murdered, and polytheism resumed. And so that's evil. Like, throughout thousands of years, you keep seeing this repetition of hypocrisy that just like the golden rule I've been saying, do unto others as you'd have done unto you. That's been interpreted and twisted into, rather than self-awareness, rather than self-incrimination, you're going to use it as an excuse to do unto others as they have done unto you. And that's prolonging this violent nature in humanity. Because we see it now as justice to dismember people and throw them in the street and feed them to animals. Generation, we're still just doing this sort of shit. We haven't learned a goddamn thing, have we? So what is evil? It's prolonging of this psychosis, this hypocrisy in ourselves, to not understand like the difference between it's the crime itself. Evil is the act, right? Evil is just the act. And so in the laws of free will, that free will shall always be preserved, though one may never assume that they can preserve another's free will. That free will, through understanding, knowledge, and wisdom, can be preserved and prolonged in others. And that is a paradox of self-awareness. Just no different than the golden rule, except you can take out all these religious labels and just look at the philosophy of man, rather than instigating these labels of fear, these dictatorial names, these just prophetess delusions of grandeur. That it's the act, that is evil, and we keep performing these acts. No different than, it always goes back into justice, which, but as religion defines evil, it fabricates evil and fabricates justice. And that's where it becomes an opinion. It becomes hypocrisy. Because we are performing the same crimes, calling it justice, and ignoring the crime itself. No different than a cop speeding who's breaking the law to uphold the law and then extort you for it. Now you're paying to break a law that somebody else broke to charge you for it. That's delusion, man. That's psychosis. And that's why religion is going to be labeled as a psychosis in the future. And that's how science and governance turns into these religious faiths, because then we create mythos over generations as we change definitions. And it just keeps cycling. We're no different than the ancient Egyptians. Just merely trying now, hopefully, through technology, which is breeding self-awareness, because what is intellect? The need to better. Stephen Hawking said it's the ability to adapt, but that's not fundamental. Intellect is the need to better. And so by every form of engineering, or every creation that we have, we are making things perceptively better, though that they fit different needs, be it for longevity or more effective in producing capital and functioning as society. But it's always this need to better that is intelligence, and that is self-awareness, because unless you have this trait to know what can possibly be better, you are looking outwardly and inwardly at the same time. And that is self-awareness, right? So the need to better. So what is evil in that regard? Everything's corruptive, right? Hypocrisy. So it's always just hypocrisy is the most evil fucking thing. I hate it to every fiber of my philosophical soul.